Do you find yourself unable to put your phone down? That familiar heaviness in your head, a tiredness that never quite lifts? Or maybe you feel anxious the moment you stop following the feed, uneasy when you're not connected to someone, a quiet creeping dread that never fully announces itself. If that sounds like you, today's conversation was made for you, and I want to say this clearly. It is not a weakness of will. It is not a failure of character. Your brain has been skillfully hacked by the very systems of modern technology and business designed to do exactly that. Today we'll look at how that mechanism works and what it takes to return your mind to its natural state. The key idea is what I call static fulfillment, a shift away from chasing stimulation and excitement, and toward finding happiness in quiet, in stillness, in the ordinary. By the end, you'll find something you can act on today. Let's think through this together. あなたの脳はハックされてる。Why is it so hard, genuinely hard, to simply put the phone down? That's where we need to start, not at the surface, but at the root. The conclusion is this: you cannot stop using your smartphone, not because your willpower is weak, but because modern business was designed intentionally to make you dependent on dopamine. That may sound extreme. It is a documented, literal fact. Infinite scrolling on social media, a feed that never arrives at a natural stopping point, that offers no moment of completion, short videos that autoplay, one after the next, without pause, the vibration of a notification arriving, a small unpredictable signal that something somewhere needs your attention. Every one of these features was carefully engineered through behavioral science research and real-world testing to trigger dopamine release in the human brain. When companies like Meta talk about maximizing engagement, what that means in neuroscientific terms is manufacturing dopamine dependency. Some researchers call this dopamine capitalism. The product being sold is not information, it is not entertainment, it is the chemical experience of wanting more. So what exactly is dopamine? It is a neurotransmitter tied to reward and anticipation. You feel it when you eat something unexpectedly delicious, when you finally obtain something you've been wanting, when someone recognizes and praises your work. In those moments, dopamine is released, and it brings a distinct sensation. This feels good, and immediately after, I want more of this. It is a powerful signal, and it was shaped by evolution to keep us seeking things that matter. The problem is that dopamine builds tolerance. When the brain is repeatedly exposed to strong stimulation, a region called the nucleus accumbens gradually reduces its sensitivity to incoming signals. The same level of input no longer satisfies. The threshold keeps rising, so we scroll further, looking for something stronger, something newer, something we haven't seen before. The hand never stops because the satisfaction keeps moving just out of reach. What happens then, when the stimulation cuts out? That is where things become most serious. When dopamine is depleted, the brain responds with fatigue, lethargy, and irritability. Nothing particular has happened, but you feel vaguely low. The body feels heavy. Nothing seems worth beginning. Does that sound familiar? That state is close to withdrawal, triggered by dopamine depletion. To escape the discomfort, you reach for the phone again. The loop tightens, and breaking it from the inside becomes harder with each cycle because the relief the phone provides is real, even if temporary. If this continues long-term, something more fundamental erodes. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for emotional regulation, rational judgment, and long-term planning, gradually dulls. This is the part of the brain most distinctly human. When it weakens, sustained attention slips, emotional stability becomes less reliable. Choices get made, not from reflection, but from the pressure of immediate impulse. When the brain is conditioned to chase intense stimulation, it slowly surrenders its capacity for reason and begins to operate on instinct alone. You are not at fault. You have simply been absorbed, without noticing, into an extraordinarily sophisticated system. Seeing that clearly is where everything begins. 脳にはぼーっとする時間が必要。Beyond the dopamine trap, there is a second reason the modern brain is under strain. We might call it information fatigue. You may have heard this statistic. The amount of information a person today encounters in a single day is said to equal what someone in pre-industrial Japan would encounter in an entire lifetime, or at minimum, a full year. The exact numbers vary depending on how you measure, but the core truth holds. Our brains evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in environments of relative quiet and scarcity. What they are being asked to process today is in an entirely different order of magnitude. Imagine a typical day. From the moment you wake up, before you've even fully opened your eyes, news, social media, email, work messages, video, on the commute, during meals, in every quiet moment between tasks, even in the bathroom, the very concept of spare time has quietly disappeared. Every gap, every pause, every moment between things has become time to consume more information. There is no longer a natural edge to the day where input stops. What does this sustained state do to the body? The sympathetic nervous system, the branch of the autonomic nervous system that handles threat and stimulation, becomes permanently dominant. Think of it as the brain's alert mode. It was designed to activate in moments of genuine danger, then yield back to the parasympathetic system, which governs rest, digestion, and recovery. The two are meant to alternate, tension and release, effort and rest, like the rhythm of breathing. But in a world of continuous information, without real pause, that alternation never happens. The switch gets stuck. The brain and body remain in a state of constant low-grade tension, without release, day after day. This brings us to something most people have never heard of, but that changes everything once you understand it. The default mode network, the DMN. The DMN is the neural circuit that becomes most active, not when we are focused on a task, but when we are doing nothing in particular. Simply sitting, looking out a window, letting the mind drift without a destination. This may seem counterintuitive, the brain being most active when we seem least engaged, but it has been clearly demonstrated through neuroscience research using fMRI brain imaging. When the DMN is running freely, what is actually happening? Memory consolidation, the brain sorting and storing what it has experienced, integration of ideas, making unexpected connections, laying the groundwork for creative insight, and emotional processing, working through experience and deepening self-understanding. In other words, what we casually call doing nothing is precisely when the brain performs its most essential maintenance work. By constantly reaching for the phone, filling every pause with a screen, we quietly steal from ourselves the one thing our minds need most: empty time. In a life where every spare moment is filled, the DMN never runs its full cycle. The result is what many people now recognize by name, even if they don't quite know its cause: brain fog. That persistent haziness where thoughts won't come together, no matter how hard you try. Inability to concentrate for any sustained stretch. A vague sense that something is off, that clarity is just slightly out of reach, and it never quite lifts, no matter how much you rest. Unexplained fatigue and mental cloudiness are symptoms of a nervous system under chronic tension, produced by information overload. If you feel tired but cannot sleep, if rest leaves you feeling no more recovered than before, this pattern of hypertension and DMN dysfunction is very likely involved. This is not a matter of attitude, it is a neurological condition. That is why try to be more positive never reaches the root. So what does? That's what comes next.
静的充足へのシフト。This is the heart of today's conversation. Everything we've covered so far has been diagnosis, understanding what is happening and why. Now we turn to the shift itself, moving from dopamine-driven excitement to a different kind of happiness. What I am calling static fulfillment. I believe this is the most fundamental answer for living well in the modern age. Let's orient ourselves first. There are three major neurotransmitters involved in how we experience happiness: dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Modern society has become expert at selling us dopamine, a new device, a post that goes viral, follower counts climbing, leveling up in a game. All of these are dopamine system rewards, stimulating excitement and anticipation. They are immediate, intense, and they do not last. Each peak creates an appetite for the next one. The satisfaction is real, but it evaporates quickly and leaves a hunger behind. Static fulfillment means changing the axis entirely. It is the calm, sustained sense of satisfaction that comes from nourishing the other two: serotonin and oxytocin. Let's take serotonin first. Serotonin is often called the happiness hormone, but stability hormone is more accurate. When serotonin is flowing, there is no urgency, no anxiety pulling at the edges. You can be fully present, not because something exciting is happening, but because something in the body simply feels grounded and at ease. It is the quiet feeling of being okay, right here, right now. The ways to nourish serotonin are genuinely simple: morning sunlight, getting outdoors and letting natural light reach your eyes within the first hour of waking, a walk in nature, even a brief one, and eating slowly, chewing thoroughly. The rhythmic, repetitive motion of chewing has been clearly shown to promote serotonin release. None of these require anything special or expensive, and every one of them works better, significantly better, when the phone is set aside. Now, oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. It is released through warm physical contact with people or animals, through genuine and unhurried conversation with someone you trust, through quiet meditation, and through slow, deliberate breathing. When oxytocin flows, stress and anxiety ease noticeably. A deep sense of safety and belonging settles in, something that cannot be rushed, bought, or manufactured through a screen. Sitting with your family and simply talking, with the phone out of reach, holding your pet, breathing slowly in an open space. These are oxytocin-generating acts. Receiving a like on social media may feel like connection in the moment, but it delivers almost none of the neurochemical satisfaction that genuine closeness does. It wears the surface appearance of relationship while providing the neurochemistry of dopamine. Let's reconsider what happiness actually means, from the excitement dopamine delivers to the lasting peace that serotonin and oxytocin provide. One more thing, and it is practically the most important point in today's conversation. Do not try to solve neurological problems through thought alone. Repeating "I should be more positive" or "I need to let go of anxiety" will not reorganize your nervous system. That is simply not how it works. Change begins in the body. Morning light, a walk outside, a slow, unhurried meal, a long, deliberate exhale. These physical actions directly and measurably influence the brain's chemistry. Move the body, and the brain follows. That sequence is more reliable and often faster than any amount of trying to think your way into a different state. Stop trying to think your way out of what you're feeling. Going outside for morning sunlight and a walk is the most direct path to a stable, clear mind. Static fulfillment is not austerity. It is the recovery of depth, the ability to notice the aroma rising from a cup of coffee, to feel genuinely moved by the color of the sky, to find a conversation truly interesting for its own sake. Restoring that sensitivity, that quiet capacity for appreciation, is what this is about.
引き算の環境設計 So, practically speaking, how do you actually bring this into daily life? Let's talk about both the mindset and the concrete steps. First, a premise worth establishing clearly before we go further. Trying to simply endure, to white-knuckle your way away from the phone through sheer willpower, will almost certainly fail. This is not a discouraging statement. It is, actually, a liberating one. Pitting personal willpower against dopamine dependency is a losing strategy from the start. The system you are up against was built by talented engineers and behavioral scientists, informed by decades of research. Individual resolve was never designed to compete with that. Expecting it to is not a moral failing. It is simply the wrong tool for the job. So what does work? Change the environment, not your willpower. The most effective solution to smartphone dependency is not trying harder. It is designing a physical environment where reaching for the phone becomes naturally harder to do. What does that mean in practice? It means deliberately building friction into the moments when you would typically reach for the device without thinking, before any conscious decision is made. Start with the bedroom. Keep your phone out of it entirely, not on the nightstand, but physically in another room, at least 1 hour before sleep. That single change alone dramatically reduces late-night scrolling. And as a natural consequence, the morning habit of reaching for the phone before you've even gotten up fades away on its own, because the phone simply isn't within reach. Turn off almost all notifications. Push notifications exist to seize your attention on someone else's schedule. If something genuinely matters to you, go look for it when you choose. Information should be retrieved on your terms, not delivered uninvited. Deleting social media apps is also worth trying. You can still access these platforms through a browser, so it is friction, not a wall. But that small added inconvenience is enough to interrupt the automatic unconscious reach. The habit loses its momentum when it meets even a minimal obstacle. And if at all possible, create regular periods of being genuinely unreachable. A few days somewhere without cell signal. At first there will be real discomfort and anxiety about missing something important. Many people feel this strongly in the first day or two. But by the third day, something shifts. The mind becomes remarkably clear, in a way that is genuinely difficult to describe until you have experienced it yourself. I hope you find a chance to try it at least once. Underneath all of these practical steps is a deeper principle, what I'd call the philosophy of subtraction. Modern culture is relentless in what it recommends. More information, more connections, more content, always more. But a genuinely rich life is not built by accumulation. It is revealed by careful, deliberate removal. Only when the unnecessary is cleared away does something true come into view. Only when there is space does something new become possible. When you subtract enough noise, a stillness opens. At first, that empty space may feel uncomfortable. An urge to fill it arises. The impulse that something must be done, something must be consumed. Let that impulse be there, without following it, because that discomfort is the signal that your DMN has begun to activate. Your brain is finally, after a long time, beginning the restoration it has been quietly waiting to do. In the quiet that emerges when you subtract information, that is where the real questions begin to surface. What do you actually want to do? Who do you want to spend your time with? What matters to you at the level beneath all the noise? In a life saturated with input, that inner voice cannot be heard. In silence, slowly, it returns. 終わりに Third, the shift from dopamine-driven excitement toward the quiet satisfaction of serotonin and oxytocin. This is the most fundamental change we can make. And fourth, rather than relying on willpower, we change the environment.
We design friction in. We practice the philosophy of subtraction, creating margin, allowing space. Change does not need to begin with something large. Tonight, place your phone in another room for just 1 hour before sleep. Tomorrow morning, before you pick it up, open the window and let the light in first. That is enough. The brain will respond. It will shift, gradually, reliably, because that is what it is designed to do when given the right conditions. Static fulfillment asks nothing extraordinary of you. No special place, no special tools. The quiet happiness we're talking about already exists in the unremarkable moments of the day. We have simply let go of the stillness and sensitivity needed to feel it. Little by little, let's take those back. Thank you for spending this time here today.